Good afternoon. My name is Santiago Barrios. I'm a member of Kendo Andes, and also I'm in charge of the interview program known as Café Geiko. And it's a great pleasure to have you all here with us. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our marvelous guest for today's session. That is Sensei Susan Zhao that is with us from San Diego. So, hello, Sensei. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for being here in the program. It's a real honor to have you here.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's my honor to be part of this program. I think what you're doing is great. I hope that I could be as interesting as other guests you've had.
No, I'm sure it's going to be a marvelous session, and we're gonna talk about a lot of topics that you and I know which topics there are, but they still don't know, and I'm sure it's going to be a great Café Geiko episode. Mm-hmm. So first of all, I really wanted to know about your Kendo origin story. Like why, where, when, how did you get to know Kendo, and how did you start?
Well, it's a very interesting story. No, just kidding. I had no idea. I've never heard of Kendo. I've never, had no idea what Kendo was until I started this guy in Canada. He was in my high school and he was doing Kendo, and I watched him play a couple times. And then we went to the same university, and I watched him there as well doing Kendo. Also, he wanted to start a Kendo club there at the university, so I helped him create one as well. So I was just watching Kendo for almost a year, I think. And then our mutual friend, sadly, he passed away in a car accident, very young age. He was hit by a drunk driver. But anyway, before he died, he encouraged me, instead of just watching, to join Kendo and actually do it. And I was always afraid. I thought it was going to be too hard and too, too challenging for my body to learn something like this. So I was very hesitant, but he was very encouraging. And also, when I started, my sensei at the time asked me, if you start Kendo, you have to do it for the rest of your life. You cannot quit Kendo, no matter what. So I thought, well, that's a big promise to keep. I can't promise like that. But he made me promise that once I start, I have to commit to it and do it until I die. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I started at the university club that we both belong to. Those people who know me very well know that I'm not athletic. I'm really not very coordinated. Learning Kendo, was far from what I had imagined. But because I also watched Kendo for probably a little over a year or so before I started, it kind of came naturally. And in the beginning, it was hard, of course, lots of blisters and hardship on your legs, your feet, your hands, your shoulders, whatever. But over time, I started to really get into it and really enjoy it. And I think most of all, in the beginning, it was more the social aspect. It was part of a university club. So all my friends came from my Kendo club there. And we were kind of a small knit community or family. And that really helped me through university life as well. But that's how I started. I think, I was about 19 years old or 20. I can't remember now. But yeah, so that's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like you had like a full year or even more of just Mitori Geiko.
That's right. Yeah. I had no idea what was going on, but I would watch and kind of sort of learn a little bit about footwork, about posture, about the swinging of the arms, and I could sort of watch tournaments and see, who's stronger. I can judge. Oh, I can tell this guy is pretty strong just from his movements or posture or whatnot. And so I learned a lot just from watching initially. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Like it's another beginning I've never heard. Well, to put it away, like an origin story like that. Like from watching Kendo a full year or over a year, just watching.
Yeah.
And then starting how was how was your first day at Kendo? Like
first day at Kendo. I don't remember my first actual day, but probably we did a lot of footwork in the beginning. At the university club, we have like a semester or quarter system. So at the beginning of each semester or each quarter, we would have, like a recruiting session, and all these beginners start together. So we probably did a lot of footwork and a lot of practice on some of the etiquettes, how to do bowing, how to seiza, how to line up, all the etiquette type of things that we learn in Kendo. So I think that's probably how it was in my first class: etiquettes and footwork.
And well, I also want to talk about how like your experience was in the dojo, but before that, I also like in the dojo in Canada, and how was, like how would you advance through the grades, or how like the experience, the growth with your companions from the dojo, as you said, in the university. But I also wanted to know, how was your first experience at Shiai? Because we tend to, as you said, you could see competitions and you could like tell how the other person is, like which one's stronger, or this one's more sure about his technique, or so I wanted to know, how was that first experience of walking into the Shiaijo?
It was really exciting. I would say I still get nervous, very nervous, doing Shiai or Shinsa and things like that. But I think in the very beginning, I was super, super nervous. And because I was so nervous, I probably screamed really loud. And I have this distinct kiai, really high pitch. Oh, I don't know if it's really high pitch, but so I would scream really loud and maybe really long. And I try to hide or sort of deter my nervous tensions using my kiai. So that was one thing. And also in the first few shiais that I did in Canada, I really didn't enjoy the shiais because I'm not super competitive. Like I said before, I'm not very athletic. I'm not super competitive. So I didn't actually do very well in shiais. And plus, because of my nerves, I didn't perform well either. But I think in the very few shiais in the beginning of my Kendo career, my focus was more not to beat the person physically, but more, I guess, with technique. So I try to focus on proper technique, which I'm not sure if I had in the beginning or not, but that was in my, I remember saying to myself, it doesn't matter even if you lose, but do proper waza and proper technique and proper footwork kind of thing. So being proper and doing proper kendo was more important to me than winning. And then as time went on and I had more experience in shiai, I think I did feel a little less nervous and feel more competitive, I suppose, especially when I had to compete for my university club, for instance, with my friends in team format, for instance. I really enjoy the team format much more than individual matches. And we would have really strong team spirit and really support one another. And that, I think, helped me to do well in shiais as well. And as you know, as you have more and more experience competing or doing shiais, you learn how to control your emotions better. You learn how to do certain things, certain wazas under a lot of pressurized situation. With experience, I got a little better, but not that bad. not great, but a little better.
But as you said, like you had a purpose, like you had an objective in your mind with each competition, as you said in the beginning, that it's do proper Kendo. And that's I don't think that's something that a lot of beginners think when they start Shinsa. Maybe Shiai.
Yeah.
That they usually they're on, oh, I don't want to be hit, I want to hit them, or
right.
But I think
I think it's a result of the teachings that I received in the early stages, like my senseis, both in the university as well as at the private club that I belong to outside of university. The senseis both stressed the fundamentals as well as doing proper Kendo was very important to them. I don't think they preached ippon all the time or winning that, ippon. In the very beginning, there wasn't a lot of verbal explanation as to how to hit a certain waza or something like that. But the sensei would show you. They will not verbally explain or lead you through step by step, but they would just kind of show you what to do, what is the proper Kendo. And so we tried to sort of copy what they do during practice and during shiai. So, and also going back to how in the very beginning when I was watching a lot of Kendo, I could kind of I could sort of discern whose Kendo style I liked more. And most of the time, it's the straight, very kind of traditional, beautiful Kendo that I had affinity to. So I wanted to copy or emulate that style, both in practice, but also in shiai. Whether I accomplished that or not is a different story. But yeah, that's what I try to do.
And well, how was your experience inside the dojo in Canada? As you said, you practiced both in a dojo outside of the university and in the university's dojo. So how was that?
Yeah, it was to me the Kendo community in Canada was just ideal and very supportive for me. In general, my Kendo progression from the very start, even to now, has been just very positive overall and very non-dramatic, or there's no big issues or trauma or scandal or problems. I've always had sort of a steady, very, very supportive, positive community around me. But in Canada, when I first started, both within university as well as surrounding dojos, as well as the dojo that I belong to outside of university, I was able to practice among some great senseis, and the senpais were also very positive and supportive. A lot of the I mean, there were obviously more guys than girls at the time, but at that time, most of the guys I'm still friends with until now, to this day. So I would say overall, the Kendo instruction as well as Kendo community was very high level and very good in Canada. Mind you, in the very beginning, I didn't have that much exposure or experience practicing with people from other parts of Canada. I was mainly all in Toronto area. So I didn't have that much experience competing or getting to know people from Vancouver or British Columbia or Montreal, where Eddie's from, but still, within that Toronto area, we had a lot of high-level senseis there, like Kamata Sensei, Kimura Sensei, Hao Sensei, Tsumura Sensei, Ariga Sensei. They all had very, I would say, strong fundamentals and idea about how to teach and how to lead this community of Kenshis. So I benefited a lot from that very strong foundation.
Yeah, and because as strong foundations, that really help you to build a lot and even higher along the way. So that's very interesting to see that this idea of the strong foundation was something not only in Toronto where you started, but all around Canada. So then after you graduated, you started living abroad, and you started traveling and training for a place. So what was the first place that you trained at, that you went to live after Canada, and how was that Kendo experience there?
I've been very lucky all my life, but also in Kendo. After graduation from university, I got a job with an American company in Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States. So I moved to Boston, and there I started practicing at Boston Kendo Kyokai, which is a small kind of a neighborhood dojo. And we had maybe about, I would say, 10 to 15 members initially. It grew, of course, and there are some periods when it's lower or more attendance. But I would say the core group was about 10 to 15 people initially. And most of them were beginner levels. My sensei at the time, I believe, was Sandan or Yondan at the time. And I was, I can't remember. I don't even remember what Dan level I was. I think I was Shodan at the time, or maybe EQ. But it was small. But again, it's, there is a sensei. There was consistent and supportive practices. We participated in various regional championships there, both in New York, sometimes as far as Cleveland. So it was a very good experience. And also my dojo, the sensei from my dojo also helped out in teaching Kendo at the Harvard Kendo Club there. So I used to follow him to Harvard and assist him in teaching the beginners at the Harvard Radcliffe Kendo Club. So it was a very good experience for me to just think about how to teach other people. And that helped my Kendo as well. Then after that, I got same company, but I got transferred to Japan, to Tokyo. Our company had a branch office in Tokyo. So in fact, when I was applying for jobs at the very final year of my university, I only applied to companies that had a branch office in Japan because I wanted to work and live in Japan. So during my interview process for this company, they ask questions like, what is your 5-year plan or your long-term goal? I would always say, my long-term goal or even short-term goal is to be working and living in Japan. This particular company just happened to have a new position open right away. So as soon as I got to Boston, within about 6 months, they called me in. They said, well, you mentioned in your interview that you want to live and work in Japan. The opportunity is here, and would you take it? So I said, yeah, send me, So they shipped me out. I think I stayed in Boston for maybe about 8 months or 1 year in the very beginning after I graduated from college and moved there. And then I moved to Japan and lived there for 3.5 years. So that was very, very crucial in my Kendo development, as you can imagine, since it's Japan.
And well, how was the difference from training in Canada and America with Japanese sensei?
Mm-hmm.
But how was it very different from like the Kendo environment that you encountered in Japan? Like how was that level for you?
Yeah, it was very different. So in both Canada and in Boston, I didn't feel like a foreigner. Obviously, I'm not a foreigner per se, but when I moved to Japan, obviously, I didn't speak the language at that time, and it's a very new environment. I'm there all by myself as a young professional for the first time, being completely independent on my own. But thankfully, I had my Canadian Kendo instructors all had connections back to Japan. So they introduced me to other senseis in Japan to sort of watch over me and take care of me while I was in Japan. So thankfully, these senseis in Japan connected me to like the neighborhood dojos, as well as another dojo, which was very special. It's called, I don't know if it has a proper name, but I was able to practice in Keisho, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, the headquarter dojo in Tokyo, in Sakuradamon Station. But because my office was one stop away from that station, and I can walk from the Tokyo Police headquarter office or building to my office. It's about 15-minute walk. So the Kendo instructor that I was introduced to, his name is Ito Tomoharu Sensei, and Ito Sensei thought that it would be a good opportunity for me to participate in Asageiko there. Asageiko is morning practice. So we practice from 7 to 8 in the morning and then take a shower and bath and go to office. So he was able to get me in, even though I'm a foreigner, even though I'm not a police person, I don't work in the police department at all. I have nothing to do with the Japanese police force at all, but he pulled some strings and was able to get me in. And that was a fantastic dojo. And I would say most of the time, all the kenshis and senseis treated me like a foreigner, because I was. But also, they were just so, I don't know what the word is, endearing. Everyone was so generous and kind to me. They would like buy me shinai or keikogi or like little trinkets or omiyage. Wherever they traveled, they would come back and give me a little souvenir, omiyage, from wherever they were. Or they will like invite me to their house or invite me to go to their own dojos or their high school or their There are other clubs to practice and things like that. So I felt like a little princess. I was treated like a princess there by all these Japanese men. But anyway, all these senseis and kenshis alike, they really were so kind, so generous, and so giving of their time and resources towards me. So I felt so privileged and so lucky and so loved. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how, as the, like you said, the community in Canada, the Kendo community extended up to Japan.
Yes.
And all how, even though you were a foreigner there, you like those people became part of your Kendo family, and you became part of their Kendo family. So and as you said, extremely privileged. I was so surprised, like you said, that. Like the trip and getting kendogi, getting shinai. Oh, it's quite.
Yeah. I never, in 3.5 years that I lived in Japan, I didn't have to buy my own shinai at all, because people were constantly giving me shinai as a present. So I'm proud to say I didn't have to spend my own money to buy a shinai. I did buy myself some beautiful Kendo bogu when I was there. I bought just before I left. I also bought this really beautiful Kendo handmade Kendo bogu, which was very expensive. But anyway, it was a treat for myself. But other than that, all the community of Kendo became my family, because I'm there as a single woman, without any relatives or family or friends initially. And so while I was there, I was able to make a lot of friends, visit a lot of different places, and meet so many different Hachidan and Nanadan senseis. But not just Hachidan and Nanadan senseis, but of course there are like Yondan, Godan, Rokudan senseis who are just as strong. And some are young, some are old. Even some of the middle school, high school kids that I met during my neighborhood Kendo, they were all very, very strong. And I learned a lot from all these different groups of people while I was living in Japan. So I had a wonderful time. Yeah.
And after Japan, what was the next place that you will live in or will travel to practice?
So after Japan, I came back to Boston. My company transferred me back to our headquarter office in Boston, and I rejoined my old Boston Kendo Kyokai club. And then at that time, I started to really help out with the Harvard Kendo Club there. So I was practicing Kendo maybe about, I would say 3 to 4 times a week. We would participate in various regional tournaments as a club sometimes. And I stayed there for how many years? Let me think. I don't remember, like 3 years, I think. I lived there another 3 years in Boston, or 4 years. And then at that time, I met my husband-to-be, and he, just before we got married, he moved to Germany. So we dated long distance. But then after we got married, I followed him to Germany. So with the same company, they transferred me to Germany. So I was able to still continue to work. So when I moved to Stuttgart, Germany, I joined a local neighborhood dojo, Stuttgart Kendo Club. It was a small club, but we had, I think, Hildegard Sensei, it's a female sensei who was the head sensei. She, I think, was Yondan, I believe, at the time. And we had some strong guys. We used to also drive around in that region in southern Germany and southern France to to attend gashkus or seminars, as well as compete. And I lived there for about 2 years. But then I got pregnant, so I had to stop doing Kendo because of my pregnancy. But so the 2 times that I stopped practicing Kendo was because I was pregnant with my children. So after Germany, we moved to San Diego. And then from San Diego, we moved to Singapore. And then from Singapore, we moved back to San Diego. But anyway, it's a long, complicated story.
But I wanted to ask you about, what was the difference that you felt and that you saw in the, let's say Canadian American Kendo, Japanese, Kendo in Japan, and Kendo in Europe,
I would say all of them had their own kind of sort of culture and attitudes. So in Canada, the culture, at least in the Toronto area, was more about, I would say it was more about developing Kendo in Canada using proper sort of very straight Kendo style. Lots and lots of basics, and it wasn't so what's the word, pushing you towards Shiai style. It was more about the development of basics and beautiful Kendo. And the people, like I said, were very friendly and supportive. And then in US, in the early days that I was part of the Kendo clubs there, I didn't feel as, I would say the culture was not as super tight as in Canada. Maybe because of the fact that, Canada is also a very big country, but in Boston and other places, it was more divided. The US culture was, so we were in our own little bubble in Boston, and maybe there's a own little bubble in New York, and maybe there's another little bubble in California. So in our own little bubble in Boston, we had very few members. So not that it was boring, but it was just the same people seeing each other every time, doing the same thing kind of thing. So I didn't feel like there was a lot of progress at that time anyway. My experience in San Diego is different in California now, but back then that was how I felt. And then in Japan, obviously, I met so many people, so many strong kenshis and senseis there. But I have to say, it was, in terms of, maybe because I didn't belong to like the Japanese community. I was always treated, like I said, like a foreigner. So like a guest. Even in my own dojo, in the neighborhood dojo that I belong to, as soon as I come, they would always like, "Oh, Susan, you're here. Oh, come here, come and sit over here in this area." And they would always make special exceptions for me. So I felt like a guest wherever I went in Japan, and because of that, the culture that I experienced was very formal and very, what's the word? I would say they were trying to show me something. I felt like it wasn't maybe truly themselves, but it was not that it was a show, but it was a little more formal. And the Japanese culture of, like, for instance, if I see my dojo mate being pushed around by senseis, really hard keiko, but they wouldn't do it to me because I'm the guest, So it was I mean, they would, of course, there are certain senseis like Ito Sensei will push me, but he's not gonna like throw me onto the floor and like really push me and things like. But I saw other people get this kind of treatment from senseis, and it was kind of tough to watch at times because some of the senseis were really tough on the kids or on the younger students. But I didn't get that kind of treatment. I was also treated very politely all the time. Yeah, but and then in Europe, I think the style in Europe, it was still young, meaning at least in Germany, everything was very physical. The practice, the Kendo style, everything is like a lot of arm strength, a lot of body clashes. It was very physical. So it's very physically challenging for me in the beginning when I went to practice there. It was, I thought it was in some ways tougher than in Canada or anywhere else that I practiced because it was so physically brutal. I remember constantly telling the German Kenshis, "Oh, relax your arms, relax your shoulders." But maybe it was in their nature to hit really hard and really strong. But the Kendo camaraderie is still there, within our dojo as well as within the very small Kendo community. People really helped each other out. We would carpool to different parts of France to participate in special seminars conducted by a guest visiting Japanese senseis and whatnot. So it was very fun and close-knit, like anywhere else as well. So I would say overall, all the countries that I've been to, Kendo community has been very supportive and very close-knit. But the Japanese one was definitely, for me, my experience was much more formal. And the European one was much more physical. The Canadian and the US is much more, I guess, friendlier or close-knit. Yeah.
And even, since you mentioned it, you mentioned Singapore. So I also wanted to know about, how was the experience in Singapore? Since, it's closer to Japan, but, they have their, as you said, in each place that you trained, they each had their own culture, and you could see it in their Kendo. So I wanted to know also about that aspect of the Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore was also very special. First of all, Singapore, there were a lot of Japanese expatriates. So there are a lot of Japanese companies within Singapore. So they would send their Japanese employees. So they bring their kids, the whole family into Singapore. So that there's already a history there of Japanese expatriates or people who live there and built elementary school, middle school, high schools. I think there were two high schools. I can't remember. But anyway, so we practiced in Japanese high schools and middle school dojos, and also elementary dojos. But so they had a Japanese only class as well as open class for all Japanese, American, or all the other people or local Singaporeans. The Japanese only class, when I was there in Singapore, they had little kids, many small kids doing Kendo, and all the instruction was done by the Japanese Kenshi who belonged to Singapore Kendo Club and was taught in Japanese. So there was no separate kids class for Singaporean kids. There was only kids class for Japanese kids, which I thought was a little bit of a missed opportunity. But anyway, and the culture in Singapore, maybe because it's really, really hot, I felt it was very not heated, but it was it's a tropical country. It's hot and humid and sticky. You just, by wearing the Kendo bogu, you're already sweating buckets. You don't need to warm up because you're already really, really hot. So I felt like when I was doing Kendo in Singapore and also watching other people do Kendo, it was very physically demanding, but also mentally draining as well. Maybe because of the climate. But the culture there was, again, it was very close-knit. A lot of the people really, try to expand and grow Kendo within Singapore. And they try to be as inclusive as possible. But during my time in Singapore, there were some political issues going on, I think, at that time. But I mean, I wasn't really privy to all the details, but I think because of that, I noticed some tensions, not just within the Singaporean side of it, but also with the Japanese group and the Singaporean group. But I think that's all kind of now past. And but in terms of Kendo, they had also high-level Kendo instructors as well as kenshis there. The Singapore national team, both the women and the men team, even though the local Singaporeans, they started with nothing, right? They had very, very little connection to Kendo per se, but they started doing Kendo just purely out of love for Kendo, I guess, or interest in Kendo. And then they grew to be such a strong force of nature. In WK at the World Championships, Singapore team did very well, both in women and men's team. I mean, it's within a short period of time, they were able to, I think the Singapore men's individual as well as maybe in the teams, they were able to compete outside of their, the round robin brackets. They were able to advance out of that, which is huge for a small country like Singapore with only at that time 200 members in the entire country. So I thought they had the heart, they had the motivation, intrinsic motivation to really, compete and do well in Kendo. So yeah, I don't even know what the question is now.
No, it was a great story, but also, if I'm not wrong, you started you started teaching, like one of the first times teaching was there in Singapore. So
that's right. Yeah. Formal teaching. I became a formal teacher, I guess, for the first time in Singapore. So they have a beginner's class. Every 3 months or something, there's a new beginner's class, and there's we have limited space. So they would, these people who are interested in learning Kendo would submit applications, and there's like an audition for the beginner's class. Maybe like 100 people will show up, and then we can only take in maybe, I don't know, I can't remember, 30 or 40 people, because we can't fit more than that number of people. So we would have an audition, like we will interview them and kind of tell them, do this, do that. And they would sort of swing their swords or do some footwork or hand-eye coordination kind of thing. And if we think that they have some potential, we will choose them. Anyway, so they asked me, the Singapore Kendo Club asked me if I wanted to teach a beginner's class. So I said yes, and I came up with a little curriculum. I know that it was from, let's say, April to June or July or whatever. So it's a 1 hour or 1 hour and a half class on Sundays. So it's just once a week that I get to teach the beginners. Oh, no, sorry. Twice a week, Wednesday and Sundays. And so I would plan out, okay, at the end of the class, this is our goal. How do I get there? I plan out the curriculum step by step, and I presented the curriculum to the SKC, Singapore Kendo Club president, and he approved it. And I talked it over with a great sensei and friend of mine from Australia, and he gave me lots of advice on what to do, what not to do, and and implemented this curriculum for my class. And it worked out really well. One of the students who started in that class became part of the national team. Now he's Yondan, I think. He's a young guy, and he's still going strong and still doing Kendo. I think him and a couple other people still doing it. But yeah, it was fun experience. It was a little bit scary in the beginning, but I got used to it. And I think most people who came to our class were eager to learn. So it was hard. It was easy for me to really keep pace and keep order and teach them. And I did a lot of basics, obviously. It was focused on footwork and proper posture. We did, I don't know how many times the suburi, but it was a very positive experience as a first instructor.
So that was the beginning of your Kendo teaching career, to put it in. It's very, and also it's I think it's great that the fact that a person that started training with you now remains in Kendo as well.
Yeah.
After those years now, it's Yondan. So it's, I think that might be that must feel very rewarding to.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So that was the beginning of your Kendo teaching career. What was next? After Singapore teaching, you went back to San Diego?
Yes, we came back to San Diego, and here I belong to San Diego Kendo Bu, which is a private dojo that started here by John Yamamoto Sensei about 45 years ago or so.
Wow.
Yeah, and him and Henry Kikunaga Sensei, they started a university club at University of California, San Diego, UCSD for short. And they had a recreation class there every Saturday. So I helped out in basically being motodachi, as well as leading some of the beginners class when Yamamoto Sensei was not able to teach or something like that. I would step in and sub in for him sometimes, as well as time went on, the UCSD team went on to compete at the Harvard Shoryuhai, which is a collegiate level tournament, as well as Yuhai, which is at UCLA, another collegiate level tournament in West Coast. So Harvard one is in East Coast and UCLA one is in West Coast. But UCSD team, we did very well. As a team, we competed in both tournaments. I think we became champions in both collegiate tournaments. I would say more than one time. I can't remember exactly how many times, but so the UCSD team training, we would have extra training sometimes after the rec class. Sometimes we meet separately in other locations within the university to train the team. And I went to all of those practices to help out and train the team members. So, and then within San Diego Kendo Bu, myself, Henry, Young, Jim, now there's Chris, Arashi. And so now we have I'm going to say seven or eight senseis now within our club. We are all Yondan and above. And we have 2 times a week class, not anymore in person. We're going to start in person pretty soon, but because of the pandemic, as you know, we stopped doing Kendo for over a year now, but we will get back pretty soon. Like June 1st is actually our first class in person. So next Tuesday coming up, we will have our first in-person training in over a year, which is amazing. I'm basically teaching in both UCSD and at our private club here in San Diego, Kendo.
And well, during all these years, both with the training and giving classes in Singapore, in the UCSD, and in San Diego Kendo, how would you say it's your way of teaching? I
would say my teaching style definitely evolved, just like my Kendo has evolved over time. In the beginning, I would say my Kendo style Kendo teaching was more mechanically focused, the mechanics of footwork and the swinging of the arms and things like that. But it's now more, I think it's better now. It's much more comprehensive. So obviously, at the end of the day, my objective is to teach Kendo in such a way that they will be able to experience the beauty of Kendo, not just in this physical aspect, but also mentally or spiritually, as well as in character development. So I start with basics, all the fundamentals of Kendo, like the etiquettes, the reiho, as well as the footwork and the posture. I do a lot of footwork and posture training in our classes, and then when we do the swinging action, I also do it step by step. I try not to rush into doing too much, but very methodical, very step-by-step way of progressing into swinging action. And I like to really add some humor or fun factor into my teaching, whether it be little jokes here and there, or in my own demonstration of what not to do and things like that. But I think if you make it fun, people will be more engaged and people would have more interest. Obviously, I don't want to be silly and be completely, disregard for Kendo core values and traditions either, by making a big joke out of everything. That's not how it is. But I try to bring in some fun factor, and also I try to balance the needs and the style of the class. So if I see that there are a lot of young men in my class that day, then maybe it'll be a little more stamina challenging and physical, but if it's more like the elderly population of our club members are in my class that day, then maybe we will dig deeper into a certain waza and really think about the specifics of the technique and really refine some techniques. So it depends on the class sometimes. I try to balance all these different physical, mental, and spiritual side into it as well. I feel like it's become very comprehensive in my approach to teaching.
Yeah, it's quite flexible. And also, as you said, having like the fun factor. Because sometimes people might be a bit intimidated by the fact of, everyone here is so serious. It's a Japanese martial art, and and that might help relax both the instructor and the practitioner, and maybe even new practitioners that they see all all these, everyone's lined up with the ball, and they just arrive without it, and they're just in sweatpants, and they're like, okay, what do I have to do? And they see that it's sort of like also a safe environment where okay, I'm fine here. Let's see how this goes. So they're not like intimidated or of trying new things.
Right. No, but also I think at least in San Diego, we try to meet up with the members of our clubs, both UCSD as well as San Diego Kendo Bu members outside in a social environment, usually at my house. I throw lots of parties, Kendo parties, but we meet up for barbecues or Kendo parties in my house or outside at a restaurant or whatnot, so that they get not just a Kendo connection, but also social connections, and they feel supported and they feel the sense of belonging to this community, so that they don't just quit after 3 months of doing Kendo or something. But yeah, we try to be not just about Kendo, but about community.
Yeah, they establish connections so that then, even though they might think, oh my God, I'm so tired, I don't want to train, they have 3 or 4 friends. So no, we're going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're coming with us. So,
right.
So yeah, they keep motivating between each other, and they support each other. So that's interesting, like developing that. One of the focus points is like developing that bond, those bonds that Kendo family.
Yes, definitely. And that's how I learned it in the beginning too in Canada. I really did feel this sense of belonging in Kendo Canada. So I think that's important in the development of Kendo for our students and our members as well. Yeah, so I've become kind of like the mother hen for our club. I think I'm the oldest woman member in both UCSD as well as San Diego Kendo Bu. So I've become like a mother to everyone.
No, and that's great, because you see, and that's how the relationship between the Kendo members just evolves, and and people just see that Kendo is not only hitting each other with sticks or hard waza, is it's so much more. So
exactly.
Coming back to the part of teaching, I also wanted to know about since you had the experience to train in Europe, in Asia, and in Canada and America. Like, what would you say? And with all these years of experience as a teacher, do you find to be a difference between men and women in Kendo?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I do. Of course, being a woman, I feel sometimes it's unfair to shy against men who may be faster or stronger, and but when I sit down really and think about it, I mean, in 35 plus years of doing Kendo, most of I would say like 90% of my Kendo experience has been with men, with, I compete against men, or I learn from men. All of my teachers have been male. I never had a female teacher. And also my fellow teammates were men. When I practice at the dojo, like 90% of the time it's against men. So yes, the men are stronger and faster physically, but Kendo is an art that can be kind of a leveling art, where using your technique and using your mental fortitude, you can compete against anyone, whether it's male or female. But in that same token, I do see, maybe because it's a Japanese sort of a traditional sport, or not sport, martial arts, I did experience a lot of discrimination because being a female. There are, of course, horror stories about all kinds of derogative as well as hurtful gestures and words that's spoken towards females or towards me in the past as well. But I'm sure some men have experienced that too. But overall, I feel the Kendo women's empowerment is growing. So I see a little bit more of women in leadership roles, both in Canada and US, maybe in other parts of the world. I don't know about in Japan, but I do see more of that. And there's more women-only tournaments that's popping up kind of regionally. In Japan, in the United States, there's also women-only gashiku or seminars also popping up in various different regions. And I would love to see more women represented in the leadership, organizational, as well as in shimpan roles in WKC at the World Championship level. It would be great to see like women shimpans doing the female divisions, just as a role model as well as inspiration. But there are so many strong kenshis and senseis, female senseis out there who are more than qualified to be shimpans. So I feel like, that's coming soon. But in terms of teaching, I would say from my own experience, there are times when I say one thing and the reception that I feel like I get is lukewarm, but if the exact same thing is said by a male teacher, they're like, this is so great, this is so inspirational, and this is so helpful. So I feel like, wait, I said the same thing to you, but it's not as helpful at that time. But if some other guy said it, it's so helpful suddenly. So there are those kind of occasions I felt, but so all I can do is when I teach proper, straight, beautiful Kendo. Whether it's a girl I'm teaching it to, or whether it's a boy or male or female adult, whatever. And the way they receive it is their own doing. They have to be open to instructions from female as well as male. And then when I practice against, especially as I grow older, my body is not as strong and as fast, and it's stiffer, and you get aches and pains everywhere now. So as I grow older, I guess I'm being more mental than physical or spiritual. So when I practice against other people, especially against female, for instance, I try also to be less physical, or I would say more focus on technical and really deep, like seme, or sort of very difficult abstract issues or aspects of Kendo. But when I try to practice that against men, I mean, that also, of course, works. But a lot of times it's easier for me to really dig deep into finer points of what I want to practicing against female kenshis versus male kenshis. The male kenshi is just more physical towards me than women. So sometimes it's harder for me to implement or practice certain things against them. So I become more physical against them as well. But I think, back to your point, I would say the difference between female and male is just the attitude and just the, it's very individual. I would say there really isn't that much of a difference for me, because I grew my Kendo in male-dominated sort of community. So I find that this Kendo is one thing that I could really do almost an equal level as men, which is very empowering to me. And I hope a lot of women feel that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the part when you said that, well, as I interpreted it, it was about like you need to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as you said, like men tend to be more physical.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, he's being more physical. So, well, as you said, you're focusing more on the mental aspect, and then like, how can I just counterattack, or how can I go against this person that is acting in a certain way, or that has a certain tokui waza, or or a person that I know. Let's, for example, it's a person that I train with, so I know what he tends to do. So it's very interesting. So as you said, it puts you like in the same. It puts any person in the same level, or in the same field. Regarding, as you said, regarding if they are man or male or female. So it's very interesting. So that Kendo is for everybody.
Yeah, but for instance, let's say if you were doing judo or even karate, and you're sparring against men or women, obviously a judo male is going to be stronger, can lift a female much easier than a female lifting a judo guy, but in Kendo, you can counter that difference between female and male strengths using your technique, using your waza, using your mental power. So in that way, Kendo is the equaling force. So I hope that a lot of women don't think of Kendo as, oh, this is male-only sport, or this is something that women can't beat or overcome male challenges. It's not. It's you can be old like me and weak and slow and still win points against young male players. So I think that's the beauty, and that's the fun part about Kendo.
Yeah, it's Kendo. It's unique, as you said, and everyone, they can start practicing and at any age.
Yeah.
And they can achieve everything at any age.
Right.
Because I have a friend that practices karate, and he said, well, if you're like over 40 and a young guy does like throws you to the ground, you're not gonna
get up.
Yeah, exactly. But in Kendo, people can you can be 20 years old and be against someone that is 90 years old, and the 90-year-old is gonna just obliterate you.
Yes.
Like, you don't know what's coming your way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think Kendo, you can, like my friend and instructor promised me when I first started Kendo, he said, you cannot quit Kendo for the rest of your life once you start. And I thought, how can anybody do that? But it's true. You can do Kendo for the rest of your life if you want to. Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this, I wanted to ask you about. Well, I have two questions, and they are both your personal approach to Kendo and the biggest impact that you've felt of that, or that you've seen that Kendo has had in your life.
Okay. I guess my personal approach to Kendo, again, it has evolved, but right now, really it's about integrity, or both in Kendo as well as in my personal life, but really doing proper Kendo, beautiful Kendo, requires you to have proper, beautiful basics, right? And you start from there. So from that kind of foundation, from strong, proper, beautiful Kendo, you know, it's going to be hard, but you start building that that skill, that focus, that discipline, whatever it is. You start building those values or those skills one by one. That's kind of my approach. There's no easy way or sure way or one way to get to the final goal. It requires a lot of hard work, requires maybe a lot of time, a lot of focus, a lot of energy. But if you put in those hours, if you put in those work, you know, you will get there. Like I said, I'm not an athletic or coordinated person, but if I can become fifth dan in Kendo, anybody can. But you have to put in those time. You have to put in the hours. You have to put in those attention and attitude and the work into it to achieve these goals. So, but in order to put in those hours and whatnot, you have to be committed, but you also have to be have this, I don't know if integrity is the right word, but have the mindset that, you know, you are here to learn and develop. So, and you can learn from just about anyone, including yourself. But you're open and humble to receive instructions and learn and improve and get better as you move along. And I say that to all my students as well as to myself constantly. But so yeah, I guess that's my personal approach to Kendo. Put in the work, put in the hours, and, you know, be committed to that path, you know, doing the proper, beautiful Kendo. And then I guess the impact, I would say having this Kendo community and this type of this passion for single thing has created not just a social and friendship circles or community surrounding me or, you know, in my life, but it has given me this sense of fulfillment, you know, to watch myself from back in Canada university all the way to now. I have accomplished quite a bit throughout. I mean, it took a long time and a lot of hard work, but I do feel I have grown so much because of it in terms of my discipline, my how I treat people, how I am so humble, and to the fact that I'm saying to myself that I'm humble is kind of ironic. But anyway, you know, being humble and being open, being respectful, all those things I think come from years of practicing Kendo and learning from Kendo, and And I do feel the sense of accomplishment. I do feel the sense of fulfillment and purpose in my life. And so for that, I'm very thankful to Kendo, and that has impacted my life in such a positive way. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said in both, your personal approach and the impact is, that it also gives you in a certain way the mindset, or like, in which you have to put on the hard work to achieve what you want to achieve. So
yeah,
so it's great, and it's a long road, as you said, but anyone can walk down that road. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Really.
So with this, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Sensei, for the talk. It's been great. Now we're gonna go to the part of the live questions from our live audience.
Yeah.
For us that have been with us or just connected, remember you can write down your questions, and we'll read them to Zhao Sensei. And then after that, we will end today's Café Geiko session. So.
Okay.
Before we start with the questions, we have a few greetings. We have greetings from James Kim.
Oh, yes. I know him. He's also from my university alma mater. Yes. He graduated a few years after me, but yes. All right.
Then we have greetings from Javier Farfan from Bogota, here in Colombia.
Okay.
He was mentioned before, the one and only Eddie Davis Sensei.
Yes. Hello, Eddie.
Greets us.
Yes.
And then we're going to start with the first question. That's from James Kim himself, and it's... How are you coping with the corona pandemic and preparing to come back to Kendo?
Oh, yes. Well, as you know, we haven't practiced Kendo in person since March 17th. So it's over a year. And we have been doing Zoom Suburi classes 3 times a week, every week. I've been going to all these classes, almost every single one of them. And both Henry Kikunaga Sensei and myself, we take turns, as well as some other people take turns teaching the Zoom class. But it's not the same, right? So I haven't put on a bogu until recently, but I think definitely doing Suburi, and I watched a lot of YouTube channels, YouTube videos on Kendo. It's like I'm itching to get back to Kendo, because now I feel like, oh, I want to try this, I want to try that, So I'm really itching to get back, but I know for sure I'm so out of shape because I haven't really done too much aerobic sort of physical Kendo for a sustained period of time. So I think we have to go in slowly starting next week. But I started jogging on my own so that I could kind of pump up my heart rate a little bit more to be ready for Kendo. And I go walks, very brisk walk. But I think when we first go back, we're not going to jump right in and start doing kakari geiko and uchikomi geiko and things like that. We're going to, do a lot of footwork, a lot of basic waza in the beginning to sort of build up our strength, build up our speed, build up our stamina, and then go from there. So again, back to the basics in the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, and as you said, over a year, it's gonna be hard. So, do you think that this is now my personal question? So, are you gonna start with training with the bogu, or are you gonna start with doing?
Yes, I think we're first going to do some footwork without the bogu on, just gi and hakama, and we'll do some footwork exercises, as well as some suburi, because we've been doing so many suburis, all kinds of suburis at our home. We're sick of it, I think. But we're going to do some footwork and some suburi to warm up. And then we're going to put on our bogu and do some more footwork, do some more basic waza, like just men, kote, do, that kind of thing initially, so that we get used to getting hits on ourselves as well as hit other people. But definitely we will start slowly. Yeah.
No, and I'm how you say this? And I'm glad that you're able to start practicing. In the dojo again.
Yes. Yeah, we are starting. However, we have a kind of a protocol that we installed for our dojo. So you have to show your vaccination card. You have to sign the liability waiver. You also have to. We have a limited space, so we can't have everybody come in all at one time. So we have a sign-up sheet so people can sign up to join specific sessions. So I think each session we're allowing 10 or 15 people, I forget, but I believe it's 10. So we're just gonna have 5 pairs of people so that we can comfortably social distance within the space that we have in our dojo. So it's not gonna be completely back to normal like before when we go back in-person training, but it's a start. Yeah.
Now, it's a start, but at least it's starting again. That's the part. Yeah.
Yes.
Next question comes from Eddie the Sensei. Yes. How do you see your role in a Kendo dojo change as the years go by?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the simplest answer to that is that I went from a recipient of instruction to the giving of instruction, right? From a student to teacher role. But I think also more broadly, I went from person who's trying to be more self-centered, meaning I want to learn, I want to receive, I want to get, and absorb as much as I can for myself, for my self-development. But now I'm much more thinking and doing of giving back, meaning I want to teach, I want to develop Kendo and spread Kendo wider in my community. I want to contribute and pay back all that I have received over the years throughout the world. I mean, especially like I was telling you about in Japan, I was treated like a princess when I was in Japan. I mean, these men just shower me with gifts and with instructions and inviting me to special keikos and whatnot. I want to do that. I want to give back to the Kendo community. So yes, so I would say over the years, I've become less selfish, less self-centric, and more outwardly.
Yeah, and it's also as we were talking about your Kendo teaching career, it becomes rewarding when you see that teaching someone, those people just also go from receiving a lot of information, growing through their Kendo, their Kendo life.
Yes.
And well-being, as you said, your student from Singapore that's now Yondan.
Yeah. Yes.
Member of the Singaporean Kendo team.
Yes, definitely. I can't be prouder of him for that, but I also feel a huge sense of, accomplishment in some ways that, I made him that way, or not made him, but you know what I mean? I influenced him this way. So it feels great. Yes.
And well, for now, our last question comes from Javier Farfan, and he asks, Sensei, just in case of moving to Canada, can you give me some advice about Kendo dojos, please? Now we have another question, so that one will be the last. So
okay, yeah, there are so many new dojos that I'm not aware of myself in Canada now. But depending on where you move to, you know, there's some great, not old per se, but historical dojos, especially in Toronto, because that's where I know best. But there's Itobiko Kendo Club, led by Shigemitsu Kamata Sensei. His father, Kamata Sensei, was my first sensei. It's a very friendly but big dojo with lots of kids and a lot of huge range in age group, from, you know, small kids all the way to, I don't know how old Kamata Sensei is, but maybe in his 70s. But anyway, it's a very strong historical dojo in Etobicoke, which is kind of a suburb, not a suburb, next to Toronto City. There's also Kimura Sensei's dojo, Toronto Kendo Club, that has several branches within Toronto area and Mississauga area. In BC or in Quebec, I'm not as familiar with the dojos there, but I know a lot of different senseis who teach there. So if you need if you tell me a specific location, it'll be easier for me to recommend a specific sensei or dojo. Yeah.
And now our last question, again from Eddie Davis Sensei, and well, I can assure you it's a question that I have too, and I guess a lot of people that are watching us from Latin America have. The question is, when are you coming to visit us in Latin America?
Yes, I would love to. Oh my God. I don't know when. I hope soon. But when are you? Well, I guess you don't know for sure, but what is it? Every 3 years, there's like that big Latin America or South American tournament. Well, there was one recently, like in Mexico or somewhere. I can't remember now. Or was it? I don't know. But anyway, I would love to, whether there's a big tournament or not. But I have a reverse question. Where is a kind of a central but, you know, convenient sort of country to go to do kendo, where we could gather other kenshis to come? I'm sure it's not Trinidad. Where is a good Latin American dojo to go to visit?
Well, I would say that Colombia is quite central. You know, we got Central American, then South America, Trinidad, not so far away.
Not so far away, yeah.
Too far away, yeah.
Wait, is traveling allowed within Central America between countries without quarantining right now, or you still have to quarantine?
It really depends on the in Latin America, and it depends on the country. I don't know how the protocols are if you're fully vaccinated, because in Latin America, being fully vaccinated, it's not as common. As I told you, around here in Colombia, 6% of the population is fully vaccinated. So
so I don't know. I don't know when that's going to happen. Eddie, you have to organize it and invite me.
Yeah, that would be a great visit and a great. And here in the comments, they said also that Trinidad. So maybe Trinidad's the place to go. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Everything points to that. So.
Yeah, maybe we should all go to Trinidad.
Yeah, I think that's the safe bet. So, and about the championship that you were mentioning, the Latin American Kendo Championship, it's
is it every 3 years?
It's every year.
Every year. Oh, it's every year.
Okay. Every year, and when the World Kendo Championships take place, if I'm not wrong, the instructor seminar goes that year. So it's like 2 years instructor seminar, 2 years instructor seminar. And well, just to let us all know, the Sensei just wrote that he's working on it. So
yay! I'm looking forward to it.
So that was our last question for from our live audience. Well, again, I'd like to thank you very much, Susan Sensei, for
thank you.
Well, for accepting coming to to Café Geiko. It's been a real pleasure knowing you, getting to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it was my honor. It was great. I really enjoyed all the topics and Also, I would like to thank our live audience and also everyone that watches the session when it's published on Monday. So, again, we have Patrick Schulteis.
Yes.
Thank you for the great talk, Sensei. And well, James Kim also says thank you.
Thank you for coming to the cafe, guys.
So with all that, well, again, thank you, Sensei. Thank the audience, and well, this has been the end of the third session of Café Geiko's sixth season. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you, Susan Sensei, and to be here with the audience. And we'll see you next week for the fourth and last session of the season 6 of Café Geiko. So with that, well, goodbye. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Bye.